And it is the ancient holy city. If you want a historical parallel, because it is, I'm only appropriating it, I am not setting it actually historically there. And so if you want what I'm appropriating from, it is sometime around the 10th century. So it is not medieval, not Crusades or after Crusades, and it is not biblical. So it's in this kind of undiscussed zone in popular culture or in general culture. It is a sleepy ancient city. It is no longer the center of empire, long after any time it was the center of empire. But the primary religions of the various empires that have overlapped it over the centuries, the various religions and their evolutions, each has left its mark and its community perhaps persisting there. In many cases, some of the religious sects probably exist mostly there, in many cases. Governorships come and go, depending on which district claims this general territory. Imperial dynasties come and go. So, when the new governor shows up and says, we are all Neo-Koveshians now, and the city is kind of like, another temple goes up.
Tuesday.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's Tuesday. So the politics are fascinating, even if we adjust them slightly for an imaginary setting. The culture is similar to that of the time. I have pretty good pictures there. They correspond mostly to what we would think of as this is the wrong word. We say Byzantine. It was never called Byzantium, and it was not Byzantine, right? It's the Orthodox Catholics communion. Actually, it's just Europeans don't like calling it that. So the dress is fairly familiar, I think, to most of us here, but the technologies of the time are actually pretty remarkable. They have plumbing and textiles and metallurgy and things like that were quite excellent in that. So the city is largely subsidized by the empire, so grain shipments and things, whatever is not produced locally, that goes there, and so it's, if not luxurious, it's the ruling imperium, wherever they are, in whatever region they may be, they know they want to keep the holy city happy. It's part of their brand, right? That we protect the holy city. So that's kind of our picture here. So how does this game work? I'm talking too much. You would know if we were playing a proper game. Each of us would have made up 2 characters. We would have tossed them into the middle. And then for a given episode, each person would pick 1. And when we play through that, the next time when we are playing a different situation, you would pick a different character from the one you picked last time. So once they go into the pool, there is no individual ownership. It doesn't matter who made them. The game master also made 2. They went in there too. So those are just the characters. Now, there are some nuances to that are extremely interesting that people often don't believe until they actually do it. So I won't try to discuss why it's there or anything. We are just playing one time, so that's kind of invisible for us. But in actual play, you might be picking up a character who has play history that you have observed and interacted with as another character, and now you have this person, and you will pick up from what you know and think about them. So the other thing now is to just say we are grabbing these characters. You can pull whomever you want. You might do it at random, or you might do it by examining them, however you want to do.
Random.
Yeah, okay. And then we will finish, we will adjust them slightly to finish the creation process so that we make certain decisions. And then you can pass me the two that we don't have. So we don't confuse ourselves with those. You will note that no ages are given on here. For those, whoever has Kura that's a female character. The others are male of the ones you have. And there are no ages because you are going to pick which family member you are. And so that will kind of set the age. If you were toward the top, you are older. If you were toward the bottom, you are younger. The characters are all adults.
This is kind of what like we did last evening.
Yeah.
Now they are all different families too. The characters are not related.
So what is Neo-Koveshian?
Yes, I should actually start talking about this, shouldn't I? The curse of setting centric play, right? That is the most modern version. This is the Imperial Center has undergone lots of reform and has finally reconciled the long clash between Almism and Koveshian. And there was a big Koveshian reform, and then that led to more and more and more wars and everything. And now we just forgot for a while that it was all one thing, apparently, according to the reforms. But we're all together now. And so even though Neo-Koveshian has that name, it is pretty much more of the conservative imperial Almism with little folded in pieces that say, well, that's okay, and that's okay, and that's okay. So nobody is fighting anymore about who eats which food on which day, or there are no those wars have been kind of settled or quieted. So think of it as a kind of a bland and comfortable attempt from the top down to say, okay, we settled all the wars, stop now. And it's quite new to the city. There's probably a new temple that has been built in the last year or two next to the governor's residence area. Or they tore down the last one, whatever it was they built there, and put up a new one, or put a new facade on it, or something like that. And that would be the only Neo-Koveshian dedicated area in the city. But plenty of residents of the city are happy to associate themselves with the new regime, and by basically becoming practitioners of this, that's a way to signal your social acceptance of it. It maybe isn't as new as that. A person could have been raised in it, but they would be the first generation to be raised in it.
Right. What do they believe?
Well, basically, the essential feature of all of them is that they have a kind of a deist view toward God. The creation happened, and now God is fishing or something like that, right? And we would look at intentions of the universe and the right thing to do through the works of all these different scholars or all these different sects or creeds through history, and we take the set that we like. Most people are just raised in something. Now, specifically, I would say that there is almost nothing about it. There's no fantasy exoticism. There's kind of the typical colorful mythologies that go with any religion, but really for Neo-Koveshian, we have reached. It's like Americanism. We have reached the apex of culture. We have just about pacified everybody, and the ones who haven't, well, they're learning. And our way of life is great, and by being a good citizen and liking the empire and throwing in with it in terms of if you live in some place like this, throw in with the governor's policies. And that's the same as loving God. That's kind of that's the Neo-Koveshian thing. Right? Koveshian, on the other hand, which is no longer a religion of power, which we have, no, we don't have anybody there, so that's all right. But think of it as various cranky Protestants who used to be in charge. And then Orthodox Almism would be very similar to, in Europe, to the Catholic Church, in that there's, it used to be it was for the longest period, for the whole history of the empire, that would be the longest chunk. That would be the longest dominant religion. All of this is overlaid on folkloric Almism, which is much more shamanic and local community based. And then I think there's at least one exotic person in here, Kura, with Vahan. Yeah, that is actually a development of a far-flung border part of the empire, but it's cool. It was cool and interesting and got picked up and became a political sect in the empire for a while. Caused lots of trouble. There were rebellions and things, but it became sort of intellectualized, and now it's kind of fancy and so there's probably like a special library in the holy city, and people who like it, are attracted to it. In fact, I would say only in the holy city do you have dedicated communities, like community practice. Nearly anywhere else in the empire, it's almost a connoisseur interest.
Scientology.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And so it would be regarded as such, certainly, by others. But I will point out that it is it's oriented toward a concept of impersonal balance and purity of thought that creates perfection in action. Think of it as California Zen, right? So the idea is you apply this principle, and from the point of view of the Almist tradition, which includes all those others, it's kind of immoral in comparison. If that makes any sense. But in many ways, the religious practice in this game, which is a big deal, is boring in fantasy terms because it's kind of like real world religion where people think their way of life and what they do every day is the primary religious practice. They think it's the same thing. So, what is your religion value? Family. We believe in family. Well, who does? I mean, what? So it's a little bit like that. So thoughts otherwise? Have we chosen some things? Do we know? You decided who you are?
In the family?
Yeah. Aha.
A husband.
You're a husband of the youngest daughter.
Yes, I think I'm married into the family.
Right.
And try to have rise a bit in
Yeah.
social status.
And you are.
That's final.
Oh, right.
So that gives
right.
me a sense of pride, and
Yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
keep that.
And also into this family, you are also a poet, so you're the artistic newcomer, right? So yeah, the daughter took a liking to a rising poet. Okay, and
I'm the second son of the second wife.
And this is for
Abiel.
Abiel. Okay.
So
right. Oh yeah. Second son, second wife. Right. And that's a very nice, straightforward family diagram too. Nothing. Nothing complicated.
No. Very flat.
Yeah. Excellent. And then for you with Waknu, have you? You haven't chosen.
No,
Okay. Sorry.
I choose the son that is married.
Oh, right. So we have two families who are
Yeah.
kind of united, and you're the one who.
I wanted to connect.
Yeah,
I
you're the.
really wanted to connect. I like
Yeah.
her very much. I love my wife and I like her family.
Perfect.
So I want
Yeah.
to connect.
And you notice you're still a young guy, so there are no kids yet.
Yeah.
Right. Good.
But
And-
we're working on it so we can
Right.
really get.
Of course, that's a good plan. And so now it mentions that for each character, and for Kura, have you chosen or still?
Yeah, my youngest daughter, Clara, 16 years old.
Oh, okay. So let's see. You said Clara.
Mhm.
That's who? That's
Daughter?
right. But Kura is your character.
No, I thought it was the family, Cora.
Oh, I see what you. That's actually a good idea. I should think of that. I should do that next time. Right. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, Cora.
Right.
Okay, Cora. But
The chorus.
so I'm not the mother, or
No, you can be that. You can be that.
okay, Cora.
Yeah, you can
okay.
choose whoever you want. That's just her name. That's
Okay, okay.
all. And so then, so you're that.
Actually, also
yeah.
thought it was a family.
Yeah, you see, this is what you learn, right? Sit down. And obviously it's a good idea, right? That's, instead of saying, oh, no, that's wrong, I'm saying, that's a good idea. I'll do that next time. So it says here that Huanu, this makes sense, says, I love a family member. One of the nice things about this love a family member part, which I think at least one other person has here, Kura has loving a family member as your little phrase there. What this means is that they have their own opinions about what they want to do, and you value those. So you really love them, not like you're not manipulating them into something. See what I mean? It's really positive.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing goes for your various hopes and dreams. For those of you who are hopeful, which I believe is the two of you. We have upcoming events regarding your careers that have effects that you really you want to get behind those. These are things that are important. You may have noticed these are the most boring role-playing characters you have ever seen. Right? They're not adventurers, they're not investigators, they're not mutants, right? So they're not hiding psychic powers or anything, right?
I love it.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it. I like it, yeah. But they are really very, very ordinary people who are just kind of, they have various levels of privilege and things like that. A couple of you are, at least one of you is in elite status, I think, which means that your money makes money, effectively. Whereas other people, is anybody indebted here? I think it is, right? You, both of you? Okay. In modern terms, that means you have a job.
Okay.
It's literally what it means. It means that there are people who are expecting investments from you of some kind, and you have to make sure that those get done. And those are usually managed through the temples. The temples are banks.
Yeah.
And the currency itself is held more in terms of the bank's records are the currency of what you get. I mean, the temple would manage things like, yes, you're good for your residence, things like that. So it's like your mortgage, but they have their own system of checking. Every few years, the governor is wise enough to declare debt clearance, and all the temples bitch.
Yeah.
But now everybody likes the emperor a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So that happens every so often.
Yeah.
And the penalties can be tough. Penalties usually mean like a downgrade in, well, if you can't bring in that much, then I guess you have to have, this, you have to move over there or something. And it's very rough and loose in lots of ways, so it's not quite as bureaucratic as it might become in a later culture. But if you blow it or you're screwed, slavery is punishment for for defaulting. Slavery is really interesting because it's temporary and it's economic. You are actually not owned. you are made to be, or a family member is made to be in servitude to someone else's economics. They can call you whatever they want, your name is taken during that time. It does have a term when it's over, but your social status after that is pretty much as an individual. I mean, you go back to your family if they're still there and everything, but you have kind of, lost with the status that you had. So, and it's dehumanizing, it is slavery, it's terrible in lots of ways. It's not, however, chattel slavery, where people are owned and sold as commodities. So,
Like half of the people going from Europe to US.
The indentured servants, yeah. It might be a little bit better or a little bit worse than that in terms of the very specific variables. This is actually the way, as far as I can tell, a lot of the slavery in the Middle East worked during this period. So it was really, they have like their own courts. Mistreating a slave is against the law. Now, whether in specific ways, I mean, you have responsibilities toward your slaves that are actionable. So, doesn't mean you have to be, it's not nice, I'm not saying it's nice. It is, however, different. Okay, but we have no slaves in this particular set of games. You might end up with